Have a seat. Welcome, welcome.
Okay, welcome back.
It's great to see you again. And how often do you get back to USC?
Not often, actually, but I like being here right now. I did teach a class, the graduating class of the Stark program, and I came a couple of times, and then I was able, through some sort of special clearance, to get everybody to come to my office. But I don't come often. But
to meet for class.
Yeah, to continue I continue the class.
Not bad deal for the students. So these guys are 18 to 22 primarily, maybe some grad students in there. Describe what the cinema school looked like when you were here as compared to now.
Okay, here's the thing. I actually did not graduate or go to the cinema school. And I hope that won't be problematic. But I went to, I graduated in psychology, and I was going to law school. I parked, however, very close to the cinema school. And I saw cinema students go into the classes, the bungalows at the time.
Exactly.
And I wondered about it, but I never actually went to the cinema school, and I didn't really have very much knowledge or interest in cinema in any regard, movies or television, other than certain iconic characters in film like James Bond, and then later in television. But it was all pretty new to me.
And did you have a good experience here?
I had a great experience here at USC. I got every single one of my grades changed. I was able to protest or contest every single grade.
It's just made our lives a nightmare right now.
I'd say no. I'd come up with any kind of reason to get a C to a B to an A, and that's. But I loved it here. In fact, I was very popular, and I had a nickname called 26 because I once took 26 units in one semester. So they'd go, "Hey, 26," it was that kind of thing. So I was, I loved SC. It was fantastic.
Oh, great!
Really,
it's good to hear.
Fun.
Don't anybody get ideas about the whole grade change thing. There's 300 of you. We're not doing that. Do you mind if we sort of like give a little bit of background on your life before we dive into film and then the book on curiosity? So, grew up locally. Tell us about your family. How many brothers and sisters, and what your parents did?
Okay, I went. One brother, one sister, both younger. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in a little cul-de-sac, and I seldom, if ever, left the cul-de-sac. I lived in a tiny, tiny little world until I was about 18, and then I expanded that tiny little world outside of the 3-mile radius in which I lived to about 22 miles. And so I really didn't see very much. I grew up with a very innocent upbringing, pretty sheltered in this little cul-de-sac, and so everything was kind of limited. I grew up in a closed world, like Saturday Night Fever. It was really a closed world. All of my value systems, everything was born in this tiny little world. And so at SC, I had to. What happened is, at the time, let's see, how do I stage this? But in any event, I went and I was very, very middle class. I mean, quintessentially middle class kid, and in every regard.
What did your parents do for?
My dad was a criminal lawyer, but sort of a BB criminal lawyer. You know, he was a good guy, very popular guy, but really sort of that was you know he was like a B lawyer really. And so my mom was a housewife. Belonged to the Optimist Club. You know, there's a lot of hope there.
Very fitting.
And
pass that on to you.
When I got to SC, I thought, you know, I have to figure out an identity beyond this one growing up on Weddington Street, going to Nobel Junior High and Chatsworth High School, because it just wasn't a good hook. So, and I thought, you know, what am I going to do? So I thought at that time, because it's a different generation, I think I'll get a Porsche. So I thought, well, how am I going to get the Porsche? I don't really have the money for the Porsche, but I wanted a brand new Porsche. So I found a way to do this night job, and as a cook, and I bought this Porsche, 911T Targa, that I always sort of scammed my way in and got this perfect parking right outside these bungalows, you know, adjacent to the girls' dorm and nearby and near the, you know, the cinema school. And then everyone kind of thought, wow, this dude's like a different person. And I decided I would create a fictional identity for myself. And I said, oh yeah, I skied in Stad, and I'd go to restaurants to sip mimosas on Sunday on Sunset Boulevard, a place called the Dome, several other places like that. So I just created a character and inhabited this whole other culture, and that became also either a mystery or my identity. I'll still never know.
That's funny.
I mean, I don't know. You didn't give me a lot of prep, so I'm just going whatever you want.
You told me not to.
Okay.
So I want to step back a little bit, because some of the greatest, defining features of our lives turn out to be sort of our what perceived weaknesses or our struggles when we're kids. And we've had Paul Orfla here from Kinko's, and so you talk about difficulty with this, what wasn't diagnosed then as dyslexia and trouble reading, and that really sort of defined some of your younger years in school. Did you struggle in school, and how did you sort of think about life with that?
Yeah, what I did. Okay, so back at the school. Okay, so in elementary school, it was pretty much just straight F's and D's. It was that was how that played out. But I was very curious. I mean, I had virtues beyond just academics. I was very curious, and I had this sort of defining question. I was about 3 years old. I said to my grandmother, "What goes faster, a car or a bee?" And there was a reason I asked that question, and it became a little more complicated than it appeared, because is it in a standing position? It was like I kind of extrapolated on what that question is and could be, and she would say, "Oh, you're special. You're gonna be amazing. You're gonna be the greatest kid. You're gonna be so successful. Mostly, I'm gonna be special." And I'd be looking at these F's. I'm looking at these F's, going, "Where is she getting this idea?" What's special is that I'm getting F's and D's. But she just had tremendous belief in me, and always gave me so much validation for all the questions that I would ask, and just gave me sort of free rein to have this sort of ultimate curiosity, and that became my brand even then, and that became kind of my savior, which was curiosity. And so as we sort of accelerate forward into college, I get into college, somehow, some way, got into USC, and I somehow got some academics going for me, a little bit of a grant, and then I did have this click where I was able to take tests. I mean, I'm kind of joking about every grade getting changed in C's, but I did get a lot of grades changed, and I challenged almost all of them. But I did have this sort of moment where it clicked, where I figured out how to study successfully in a short period of time and succeed at it. But then I got out of college.
Well, before we get to your first job,
right,
I just want to make sure, because it set a little bit of the foundation. So your grandmother's a champion, always encouraged you, even though you really struggled in school. Sports were an outlet for you. You swam a little bit, you played a little football, and you referenced one of the most scarring memories in high school, and you later turned it, used it for, but can you sort of share that, since so many people have probably experienced something similar?
So as a kid in high school, junior high school, I played a lot of sports. I'm relatively coordinated and pretty competitive, but ultimately when you get into high school, people get bigger. So I stayed about the same size. So as the guys became 6'3", 6'4", I still stayed 5'8", but I insisted on playing these other sports. I did very well. So I stayed playing football, but did Hell Week at Chatsworth High School, and you do the 2 hard weeks, and what happened is you sat in an auditorium about twice this size with all of the kids that were playing football. They were out to play football. And each kid was to identify themselves and to say their status. So they say, McNamara, status. And McNamara would say, okay, Steve McNamara, quarterback. And then keep going, go like that. So it got to me. I'd go, great, say status. I said, Grazer, tailback. Incorrect. Cut. So I thought, oh my God, that's pretty hardcore, in front of like 500 boys, So that memory was kind of brutal for me. I just thought, wow, it was a very short timeline. It was like within seconds. I was once like an athlete at the school and going to be playing football, and then just completely fell off that cliff, all in a matter of seconds. And so I had pretty good recall, as we all do, for those moments that are giant triumphs or, tragedies. And that was kind of a tragedy. And so, to what he's referring to is, but what it did is it prepared me to be open-minded about material that I read as I was a young producer. So when I read this book called Friday Night Lights by a Pulitzer Prize-winning author named Buzz Bissinger, I saw that book was about three things. It was about high school football, it was about small town, which is Odessa, Texas, and what that universe looks like, and it's about a boy's identity. To me, it was only about a boy's identity, and those other two components were very secondary. And it just completely resonated for me, and it reignited that memory that I had getting cut by Coach Ogawa at Chatsworth High School. And that pretty much became, first of all, it informed me emotionally as to that I should go chase after this. It informed me as to what should be the point of view of this piece, because every narrative has a point of view. I mean, you could all have the same exact story and you'll all have a different entry point into it, and it will all to you have different emotional meaning. So that prioritized emotional meaning to me, and I was able to make this movie, and I think we did it correctly, and then it went on to go become a very successful and Emmy Award-winning television series. But without that kind of an emotional tragedy or crash, I just wouldn't have had those insights.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have had the insights or ability or confidence to champion the proper identity of what that movie is.
Excellent, excellent.
But I have like 20 of those.
And so you said you had a great experience at USC. You graduate. Tell us how you got your first job in Hollywood, and well, you were planning on going to law school, and tell us how that changed in your first job in Hollywood, if you don't mind.
So what happened is I ended up graduating USC. I did pretty well, got accepted to law school, but I needed a job. I didn't want to go to law school. I just felt like, okay, this is just the, fault. I guess I'll go to law school. And really, I think I just thought I thought it would be important to have a nice office or something. I mean, I looked at it the most superficially. But then I started to think, well, I'm never going to really get through law school. If I get through law school, I don't think I'm going to pass the bar. And then, do I really have the sort of tolerance or interest to even do the job if any and all of those things, come up as yes? I thought, this whole thing is going to be a wipeout for me. But I did have a lot of curiosity. So I thought to myself, what should I, do? And two things happened. One is I decided I wanted to meet the most popular professor at USC, and his name was Milton Walpin. And he, much like, maybe as popular as you. I'm not. He was very, very popular and very unavailable for a spare time, but I really wanted to get to know him. He was the teacher of abnormal psychology, and it was just really interesting. He was super popular, and I thought, I think I'll try to create some sort of reason to get 5 minutes with this professor, Milton Walpin. And I wasn't very successful at it, but then at the same time that I was trying to do that, I overheard a couple of guys say, I was in an apartment complex that I was living, I heard a couple guys go, I just left the cushiest, easiest job. So I open up my window so I could hear better, but close the drapes so they can't see me against the window. And I hear these guys, it was the easiest, cushiest job, man. When'd you leave? I just quit today. Where was it? Warner Brothers. I'm thinking, wow, that sounds interesting. The guy goes, I just quit. His guy's name is Peter Connect. Super easy. I'm going, all right, great. Close the window, dial, get the number of Warner Brothers, immediately call 843-6000, get Peter Connect on the phone. I heard you're looking for a law clerk. I just got accepted to USC. I give him this whole story. He goes, come on in. I come in, I meet him at 3 o'clock, I get the job like at 3:01. It just came together like that. So Now I've got a little tiny office. I mean, like, it was so small with no windows. I can't even create the architecture of it. It's so small. And, but I've got this company car because they get these things. I get a company car. I get $5 an hour. Oh, Elizabeth Daly.
Dean Daly, hello. Welcome.
Okay. So now I've got this little job where I work like I have an 8-hour-a-day job, but really it's only about an hour. Really, it's only an hour you have to work, and so I'm thinking, what do I do with this? I'm supposed to deliver papers, blah blah blah, and I would have to deliver papers to famous people, but I could just drop them off. But I used to say to their house managers or to the receptionist, I have to see William Peter Blatty himself. I have to deliver to him, basically touch him. I have to see Warren Beatty, literally, personally. I have to hand it to him. So I got to start to meet all these people. Then I hear, this is all in the timeline of about 6-7 weeks, and then I see that somebody gets fired from, the senior vice president of business affairs gets fired from from Warner Brothers. Now there's a gigantic vacant office with 2 union secretaries, huge office, much bigger than my boss's, Peter Connect. And I say to my boss, he's about 73, 74 years old. He started with Jack Warner, so he's only working until 11 o'clock in the morning. He's pretty checked out. But I say to him, Pete, Mr. Connect, can I have that office? He says, sure, I'll work it out. It's a little more conversation than that, but all of a sudden now I have a big office, really, and it's down at the end of the hall, right in the cadre of the 3 biggest offices at Warner Brothers. The chairman was the chairman, his name was Ted Ashley, the co-chairman, John Calley, and Frank Wells was the president. My office was right there. And they would just see me, but they're too busy and their lives were too big. They didn't say, what do you do? But they would say, sit on my couch, you get to learn what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So I was like sort of drafting off of their expertise, sitting on John Calley's couch, looking at pictures of boats with fish, big marlin he's pulling out of the water. He's got no desk. It's just a giant living room. And I'm going, there's no chance I'm going to law school now. It's like, why would I do that? These are people, they're working in living rooms with boats and fish and Ally McGraw on the wall and the most beautiful girls. I'm going, forget it. I'm never going to get through it anyway. So I create this little story that gives me the ability to stay for an extra year. So now I've got this big office for an extra year, and is this what you want?
Yes.
Okay. So then what I decided, so then I think, how do I maximize this office and this situation, this real estate? So like wring every little drop out of this sponge. And I do have this enormous curiosity, and that was my strength and virtue and tool. So I decide what I'm going to do is many different things. I'm going to, with my extra 7 hours a day, I'm going to find some person that is the most important person in their field in the entertainment business, television or movies. So I met with Norman Lear, I met with the chairmans of every single studio. Not immediately, it took a lot of work, it took preparation and thought and the right access points and following secretaries to their car in the parking lot going, oh, please can I meet your boss, Richard Brooks, And then it was a lot of that, but it really is a lot of homework and a lot of strategy. And then you have to have the right sentence to get inside their shell or role. But I would literally every day do an outgoing call. I'd say, hi, my name is Brian Grazer. I work at Warner Brothers Film Studio. I need 5 minutes of time with your boss for the following reasons, and I absolutely do not want a job. And that worked pretty well because to each person I would conform an insight as to why I wanted to meet their boss. And I met the greatest movie directors of all time, the greatest producers of all time. And there was this moment where it's about 7 or 8 months in, and we'll come back to the professor, which I'm sorry I left on the side.
worries.
But I really wanted to meet Lou Wasserman and Jules Stein. Jules Stein was the founder of MCA, Jules Stein was the founder of MCA, and Lou Wasserman really was the operational officer of MCA, and really kind of the patriarch of the motion picture business. He's literally the most powerful man. And I did everything to meet them, and eventually I did get through to, I eventually got through from the third assistant to the second to the first. Took about 10 months or so, quite a while, and I got up to meet, I got to meet with Lou Wasserman, and as I was approaching Lou Wasserman, I could see that he could see I was full of shit. That I could see. Whereas other people, I really could get way more than 5 minutes. I could get a really good conversation going, but I don't know, I just could feel he's just going to go get out of here. But he just said, okay, what is it, kid? And I start to tell him a little bit of something. And then he says, oh, by the way, here's Jules Stein. I meet Jules Stein, say hello to him. And he says, just a minute. Within a couple of minutes, he comes back and with a legal tab, just like you have writing in your lap, with a number 2 pencil. And he said, here you go. He said, put the pencil on the paper and it has more value than it did as separate parts. Now get out of here and good luck. I thought, all right, So now I realize, I think to myself, what he's saying is I have to create intellectual property. I have to create ideas, manufacture ideas that I have some ownership in them. Because I didn't have enough money to buy books or ideas and things like that. And, I didn't have a brother that was best friends with Bill Murray. None of those things really were available to me. But what was available to me was the pencil, the paper, and just my natural resources to create, to manufacture ideas. And so now what I had was 2 things. I had curiosity and the pencil and the paper and the ability to write ideas, and then this curiosity that I still continued this journey, by the way, long past meeting people that were experts in the motion picture business or television business. And that's what the book is basically about. It's about 30 years of meeting people every 2 weeks that are outside of the movie business. So science, medicine, politics, religion, every art form from prison art, fashion, everything, every kind of art form, Cotier, I've met from Andy Warhol to actually Jeff Koons did the cover of my book, that little face. That wasn't me. It was just, I said, express what curiosity looks like. And Jeff Koons did that cover for me. So I'm making sort of all sorts of digressions and everything. I did meet Milton Walpin, by the way, and I got him to a meeting that was longer than 5 minutes. It was about an hour and a half, and it was really edifying. It was emotionally valuable. It was intellectually valuable, and it did give me the confidence to perfect this little art form of meeting people that were from Jules Stein to Lou Wasserman, and later to meeting hundreds of Nobel laureates. I met Jonas Salk, who didn't win a Nobel Prize, but John Nash, who did win a Nobel Prize and became a beautiful mind. So there's a lot of data to throw at you right now, but it's the thing about movies, in which, not that you have to go into the movie business or would, but each movie is its own discrete business. You have to have enormous amount of information on every one of these every one of these movies, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I mean, I became kind of expert on, I met a woman named Veronica de Negre. In my course of meeting super famous Nobel laureates, I also met people that weren't super famous, but I met this woman named Veronica de Negre sort of by accident that was she just had gone on the Amnesty tour with Sting and Bruce Springsteen for a very short time, but she was tortured in Chile. And she survived torture by creating an alternate world, a narrative that was outside of what her present moments were of being tortured and raped and subjected to torture that's beyond, shouldn't be in this won't be in the room right now. And she found this world to live in so that she could survive a year and a half of straight torture, of being blindfolded, the complete sensory deprivation, unpredictability as to when she's going to be tortured. But she found this method, and I thought, this is really amazing. And I found her story so valuable that I made a tiny little movie called Closet Land that was about this thing, about torture and escaping it. But it was ultimately, it was a really inspirational piece, but it gave life to my greater insights about living in an alternate reality. And so when all of a sudden I met John Nash, and I thought I should make maybe I could make a movie about John Nash and turn that into a triumphant story, not about solving schizophrenia, but about how you can win or how love can eclipse that ultimately, and the power of that. That book did not have an alternate reality. It only had this binary story. And watching schizophrenia is not cinematic. But because I met this woman 15 years ago, I connected the dots and thought, oh my God, I can create an alternate reality, because that is the way schizophrenics live. They live in different narratives. And if we start our movie with the kind of tension and suspense of that alternate reality, not real reality, of a schizophrenic's mind, that could be very powerful and very cinematic, and will give people a sense of what it would be like to be schizophrenic. And now I'll stop talking.
No, that was, I mean, because of your age, hopefully you have seen A Beautiful Mind. It is one of the best movies of all time. And you're right, everyone's a different business, everyone's a different project, and we have more material than we ever would have time. So I'm going to leave it to cinema students if you want to ask questions about particular movies, because we could be here all night. But on A Beautiful Mind in particular, which won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, why was it personally meaningful for you, and was there an inspiration for that particular movie?
That movie was meaningful to me because I met experts in this field, and then I ended up having a son that had Asperger's. And I wouldn't have known how to diagnose that. It was pretty, the whole thing, kind of all these things sort of coalesced, and then just watching how people, including my son, was stigmatized. And because any little disability can cause stigmatization. And I thought, I want to try to find a way to destigmatize mental disability through the vehicle of a movie. So.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the book, because we've got probably about 25 minutes to talk about that, but I want to focus on that. So why, curiosity, I guess, is your defining trait, if there's sort of one way to describe you, and everyone's sort of got more than that. We hear so many other traits lauded by, lauded for success. It's passion, it's perseverance, it's creativity, it's innovation. How has curiosity been a driving force for you, and how does curiosity give you what you call a quiet power? And because that's something that we can all use.
I just always felt that making movies and television, there are real metrics for it. Metrics for success and non-success. And I didn't really want to live, although a lot of my movies and TV have done well, some don't, but I didn't want to live by the conformity of those kind of metrics. And I thought, nobody judges curiosity. You can't be judged. You can't be judged. You can be judged by being boring, but if you exercise real interest in somebody or a subject, it has a lot of power and it animates your life. And so I thought, by doing these meetings every 2 weeks, and I felt that they were really very, very valuable, beyond beyond the fact that some of them have turned into a movie or the insight or had value. It had personal value.
And there was never, a plan to develop a movie from a conversation, particularly, right? What was your plan? First of all, because the book isn't out, approximately how many curiosity conversations did you have, and over what period of time?
Let's say 25 years. 1,500.
1,500.
Of sort of systematically doing it.
How often are you? Is it a daily routine? Is it a weekly routine?
Well, no. I try to do it every 2 weeks, and we try to do it every 2 weeks.
And what was the goal for the conversation? And
well, it wasn't about. It was really just to to create more value in myself, and people. There is value in just having more personal value. It's some of the movie stars that I've worked with. They could work with many people because they're in high demand. I mean, Denzel Washington could work with a lot of people, but I think he kind of thought I knew about subjects that he either wanted to know about or didn't know. I think it has a life to it that is interesting to people, and they kind of know that in a tough situation, which we're all in at some point, you're going to have some additional knowledge that someone else didn't have, and you're going to have some resources you can, sort of fuse together with that, and that's going to pay off.
And we're all in college, or most of us are in college now. Seeking answers. Did you find that life's about answers or life's about questions?
I think life is so much about what's in the middle of the question and the answer. So when you're talking to a person, it's so much different than, because we can Google, we can everything, but when you're talking to a person, you're inventing your questions in the moment. It becomes biochemical. It's a different thing. So it's that gray area, the distance between myself and this girl here. Those questions, the thing that's in the middle is going to have the greatest value. It's not going to be the answer. Or even, often people say it's the question, but the better question comes from the middle, from that space in the middle, of that struggle of trying to find access points with people in what they know, their life process, their expertise. And people are so surprising. I met Blake Griffin as one of my people the other day, or 2 weeks ago, or 2 months ago. He was totally cool, very, very interesting, rather to speak. But I said, who do you trust? And because he's so young and such a superstar. He said, I got this sports agent. And I go, yeah, what's he like? He said, well, he wasn't really a sports agent, just a guy. I really dig him, da-da-da. But I really trust him. And it was clear that the guy wasn't a professional sports agent that grew up in that. But I said, I want to meet this guy. And he was kind of surprised that, because I'm meeting him, why would he think? So I go meet his sports agent, who was he was an assistant DA, one of 100 assistant DAs in Philadelphia, making $11,000 a year for 11 years. And I just thought he was so fascinating, because I go, what's it like? He goes, we all get up like 4:30 in the morning. It's pretty collegial. We help each other with problems, even if we're against each other, but we really help each other. He goes, I guess we just do it because we feel like we can make a difference. And I thought that was really heavy, because if you think about that, just, I'm doing something just because I think I can make a difference. I think that's purposeful. You can still make money. That was his choice, though. But doing something purposeful, something that has meaning, is powerful. Movies have meaning. The right movies have meaning. There's little internet pieces that have meaning.
Yeah, and we've been having these talks for 12 years. So when you sort of were doing the same thing, we pick up. The great part is meeting students at this great inflection point in their lives. That's the best part. The other part is, over time, you do pick up these nuggets of wisdom that maybe even someone just said it a little differently that resonates with you and you remember it. What strikes me about you is not only the question, but the act of listening. And you pay attention to what people are saying before, a lot of people are ready with their answer because they want to talk again. And so these are techniques that can be taught, right? You weren't necessarily an expert. I would suspect as a kid, maybe being dyslexic, have a hard time to read, you were very observant and tuned into what people think. But these are things that you can teach people, right? How to listen and how to ask good questions, right?
Definitely. Because everybody has a set point of curiosity. But I think just developing it just involves you more in the world. You guys, I'm sure, do it. It's just, you just become more involved. You can't really have a real relationship with somebody if you're not curious and asking questions and being specific about it and genuine. I've done a lot. So many things have come from that. I took up surfing. Then I bought a house on the North Shore of Oahu, and it's like, I just thought, I think I'll learn about this subculture, because it's really hard to demystify, like the subculture of surfing on the North Shore. And I found it really, there's so many, I found it gigantically valuable. And there's things that have become movies, and there are things that have just become like wisdom to friends, or questions to friends to give me wisdom.
Sure. And the goal seems like you got this insatiable inquisitiveness. and part of it is self-improvement, I imagine. But you mentioned you can't really have a relationship without curiosity. And most people wouldn't put that on the top of the list of what you look for in a partner, a mate, a business partner. But why is making human connections and emotional connections so dependent upon curiosity?
Well, why are human I think, I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know if I have a better answer. I just think that I don't think one is very, I don't think people are very attracted to other people that are completely self-involved, you know, or beyond narcissism. But I think you're more attracted to people that are curious or that are genuinely interested in what your life is about and is remembering the specific questions, not just the general ones. I think people generally like genuinely like people that have interest in things other than just one subject. I think people are, because it's just more attractive to have that diversification. Because sometimes, in order to create, you have to get out of the rhythm of the vocabulary, of a single vocabulary. So probably a strong reason I did this was to get out of the vocabulary of Los Angeles and the entertainment business. Because that is a specific culture or subculture. And in order to get out of that cycle, you have to enter other vocabularies with other people that have different value systems. Ultimately, I guess I believe that all people access on the same real internal values, but it's the language and sort of what drives that culture that makes a difference. And so I just think that, you know, people do different things to just escape that, because otherwise you're just in a loop. I mean, often I look at like graphic arts, you know, I look at just graphic design. It just gets you out of a cycle, you know, because it's hard to be really creative, generate new ideas if you're living in a cycle.
Yeah, and you sort of,
cultures don't really evolve like that.
Exactly. How do you learn more? How do you grow? How do you evolve? In terms of the relationship you mentioned, you know, when we talked on the phone, that, you know, how can you have a relationship without compassion and trust? And those are sort of sister traits of curiosity. If you care enough about somebody to ask about their life and listen, then those things sort of build trust in relationships. Yeah,
I mean, we see how cultures evolve. I mean, I'm sure there was a time that people didn't imagine there'd ever be an African American president, but there are different events that help that happen. And I'm going to stay away from everything political, but I mean, they're just, you know, music had an impact on it. There's so many things that have an impact on that possibility, and then it happening.
Were there any? You know, I'm sure you have so many stories about so many conversations. Is there a funny or fascinating one, or one that just absolutely shocked you that, you know, to this day you think about? And I know that's tough to do with that many, but is there one or two you want to share?
Of these stories?
Well, I mean, the conversations.
Well, usually they're the ones that are the most extreme. Either somebody that just definitely has a completely different point of view. I mean, I met with Edward Teller, who's thought to be the father of the hydrogen bomb, and later was the creator of the Star Wars program. Very like a technocrat. So he had no interest in storytelling. And I remember Ron Howard and Tom Hanks go, how could you tolerate that? Like, he put no value on my life at all, and no value on humanities, like and liberal arts. It just said, I don't see movies. It's not of any interest to him. It's just how fast and as fast and as progressive technology could be, he was on that rocket, and that was it, or part of the creation of that. But I thought it was interesting that he had such a different, he was so different than me. I mean, look, I met Isaac Asimov and his wife, who's the most prolific science fiction writer in the world ever, probably, and I couldn't find the thing to talk to him about. And I remember it took about a year of work and strategy to meet with he and his wife, and because they don't leave their house, they don't leave their apartment. I'm in New York. finally was able to create this meeting, and they both just said, she said to him, Isaac, he doesn't know enough about our subject or your books. We're leaving. And they just left. And that was like in 2 minutes. That was just a year of trying to do that. But they were probably right. I didn't know enough about robotics and science fiction. I didn't have that depth of field, and I couldn't find the access point, because ultimately, you have to, in any of these conversations or just in real life, both people have to benefit almost equally. I mean, the goal is to have both people benefit equally. So when I'm meeting with Edward Teller, I'm hoping that I'm enlightening him, that I'm keeping his interest enough to abuse me for an hour, or it's just, or with Jonas Salk, I didn't create the polio vaccine, he did. I don't have those, but I did find the right questions that he felt some benefit from. And I think in all relationships, both people have to feel benefit. And if you can do that in these kinds of curiosity conversations that I would conduct, there's just so many byproducts, so many advantages to it that I've mentioned so far, and there's so many more. One was, I can give you one. Should I give you one quick one? Okay, very super fast one. So basically, super fast. So in these conversations, I met this guy. I met Veronica Denegre. Then I met a man that worked for the State Department, the CIA, that taught people how to survive. He taught Green Berets, CIA, FBI. He was the leading expert in the world teach people how to survive torture, how to create mechanisms to do that, other than the one of Veronica Denegre. So I meet him. I think the guy's amazing. I spent like 2 or 3 hours. Now it's like 15 years later. I'm doing this movie. I'm doing How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. So Jim Carrey is now got $20 million plus $5 more million. He's got all this money. Got the money for the movie. The movie's about ready to start. He's going to quit. He goes, I'm quitting, but I'm going to be dignified. He's a great guy. He goes, I'm going to give all of the money back plus what I got, the bonuses and interest. I can't take it. I can't put this prosthetic on any longer. I can't put these contact lenses on to make my eyes look green. And if I don't do it, it won't look good. And I'm perfectionistic. I have to quit, and I'm going to give all the money back. We can't do that. I promised, like Audrey Geisel, the widower of Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss, I'm making the movie. I won this against all. I gave her my word and that we would make this movie and it would be amazing. Now, it's Ron Howard and Jim Carrey and I, we're so close to making this movie. We're like weeks away from shooting. He's saying I'm quitting. I said, just give me a weekend. So I get this guy on the phone. I get him on the phone. I go, this Jim Carrey is being tortured. It's like being tortured. It's like being buried 10 feet under the ground. He can't survive this. He's ready to, and he says, okay, I'll meet him. So I have him fly. I pay him some money. He flies. He lives with Jim Carrey for 48 hours, and Jim Carrey comes to work. He says, I'm okay. I'll do it. and he found these different things that every time he felt like he couldn't breathe, he had these devices inside of himself to get out of it.
Being able to access that.
Yeah.
Your Rolodex and your network has to be both like impressive and then just seemingly random, because these weren't just people from the entertainment industry, quite the opposite. These weren't all telephone calls either, by the way. You got on planes, you met with people in person a lot of times?
Sure, yeah.
So having someone dismiss you in 2 minutes if you've gotten on a plane has got to be an interesting result. So are there any people sort of coming up that on your wish list that you've got sort of in your targets?
Coming here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it was. I was excited about it. I hope it wasn't too didactic.
No. This class really, it's 2-unit class. It's not heavy lifting. It's more experiential, and it really is about this. So it's exactly what we wanted to cover. Let's talk. Talked about torture and fears, and I've read this somewhere. Your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? I don't know. I'm giving a TED talk in a couple weeks. I'm afraid of that. But I'm excited. I like doing this. It's fun, but the TED Talk's a different thing. I'm not afraid of life or death stuff. I'm afraid of being late or like be at a party that I'm uncomfortable. I'm afraid of little dumb things.
Oh, I read that one of your biggest fear was being boring. So that's sort
Being
of
what? Boring?
or unoriginal or leading an unoriginal life, which I think really is.
My biggest fear is like these kids walking out and going, that guy was really boring. The biggest fear.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
I'm not. Yeah.
But it
Things
seems
like that. I don't want to offend people. That is a thing that is very consistent. So if I go, to a party or an event or something like that, I do get it. I'm in the car and I'm going, oh God, I hope I said goodbye the right way. I think all that stuff through an insane, just like in an insane way.
But you know what that is? That again, it's a sense of empathy, and it's particularly strong in dyslexics. And Paul Orfila says the same thing. Just like, the last thing to go in an Alzheimer's patient is empathy, our sense of empathy. We're wired that way, and you're probably overwired that way because of how you observe people. So it's interesting to hear that. And this, the curiosity conversations seem to be driven by this, thirst for knowledge, the thirst to not be boring, to lead an original life, and then also, self-improvement. I want to read a quote from Tom Hanks about you. So Tom Hanks, who starred in several Imagine movies, including Splash, Apollo 13, Da Vinci Code, says, quote, Brian has made himself Brian Grazer. It has required a number of remakes. He's always had an eye out for grander results. He's extremely pragmatic about how life works, and he's trademarked his face and head. He's pretty healthy now and happy, although he's still hell-bent on some degree of improvement. So 2 questions. First, the hair.
Yeah.
What's going on with the hair? Tell me about that.
The hair. The hair was 20 years ago in show business. All the really tough, meaningful producers were, they had facial hair, they threw stuff, they had some defining trait. And I didn't throw stuff. And I really couldn't grow a beard. So I thought those things are kind of out. So what will I do? How do I figure this thing out? And what happened is I just was swimming in my pool and I popped my hair up and I kind of liked it. And my daughter, who was like 3 at the time, goes, yeah, that's great, something like that. So I just thought, I'm going to do this. So I put some gel in it and I just did it. And immediately I loved it because it was really polarizing. People either thought, what an asshole with that hair like that. I know they either said it or you could feel that energy. Or they were curious, like, what is that? What did you mean to do that? And then there was a few people that thought that was kind of cool. But I just wore most people down, I guess. So at the time it was like the first of its type. And that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, and you sort of stuck with it. Your
but brand. I did have detractors. I did have people say, "Hey, don't do that. People won't take you seriously." And there was this, and it was a smart thought. I mean, like this most powerful guy in show business was a super agent, my agent, said, "If people will definitely not take you seriously. No way." And I thought, you know what? He's saying something. There's something being said here, and because he always wore a suit. And I thought to myself, wow, what he's saying is that the suits won't, but then conversely, the artists will. So I thought, I'm going to go with the hair because I want to relate to the artist, even though I have business acumen, and I'll just do it that way. That's how it came down.
And so the second point on hell-bent on some degree of self-improvement, what's curiosity's role on self-improvement, and why is that important to you?
What is curiosity? Well, you're never satisfied. I mean, if that's your mission statement is curiosity, and you're doing it like I'm doing it, you can be happy, and I'm pretty happy, but I'm never fully satisfied. Because I want to know. There's always something that's in my vision, within the optics, my optics, that I want to learn about, know about. And I don't know. I mean, there's so much I don't know about. But little things lead to little things. you know, I heard this guy, ODB, Old Dirty Bastard, like 20 years ago. There's this guy named ODB, who you all know who he is. And I didn't know what ODB was, but I'm hearing him, I'm in New York on a radio. And I'm going, who's ODB? Oh, yeah, it's Old Dirty Bastard. Okay, I think I'm going to meet ODB. I got to meet ODB, a guy called ODB. So I meet Old Dirty Bastard. He's a trip. And that made me think, I better meet you know, a few of these other guys. I met like Chuck D, and then eventually it led to Slick Rick. I think, wow, Slick Rick, he's sort of like ODB, but he's being carried in with a crown and everything. But ultimately that led to Eminem. So that was like a good thing, which ultimately eventually led to American Gangster, which eventually sort of led to Empire. So they all sort of find, it's like these little trees, and then there's all these branches, and then you just, if you stay excited by these little trees and the branches, they lead to things. And like, I don't know enough about technology, but I try to fly up to see guys in Silicon Valley, you know, or you know, every 3 or 4 weeks, just learn stuff.
And this is something that
I can't apply everything. It's kind of a sad thing. I mean, I can't monetize it. I don't monetize it, but I definitely gain something from it.
And you don't know if it's going to be useful in a day, a month, years later.
Yeah, I mean,
ODB,
I'm sure he didn't think like we're meeting and it's going to become 8 Mile.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know where that sort of crooked path is going to be, and particularly with the number of people you've spoken with. And this is not something haphazard. It's not something that you did in your spare time. This was curiosity and using your techniques. It takes discipline, right? Sort of like exercise.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot. It takes it takes discipline, but it takes the discipline to actually. I mean, you just actually do have to write a list. You have to create a real system. You can't just go, I think I'll do it. You have to create a system where you write down some names or subjects. If names are hard, it's much easier to do the subjects and then go back, retrofit back to the names. And you might not meet the number 1 person you want to meet. You might meet the number 2 person that could be better than the number 1 person, because it's really just a learning tool. And but you do have to have the right questions, and you do have to really have to have a strategy of how you're going to get this person to want to pay attention. You have to make them want to meet you. It's just like they do this, what is it, a desperate salesman never makes a sale, or you guys know this just in human relations. Desperation without thought doesn't breed very much, but if you think it through and you think about what is the question you really want to know, and you think to yourself, like, what could they benefit from me? You'll kind of it'll evolve.
And do you prepare in advance? Do you think about the
You
questions?
definitely have to prepare. Yeah, if you have to prepare in advance, and you do have to learn about if you're going to be, it's going to be fashion. I mean, I once met like 10. I went to New York. I had 10 meetings in 2 days of all of the fashion editors of every magazine. Anna Winter, I met from Interview magazine. I met her. I forgot her name. Anna. I don't need to try to pull that up right now, but it's an exercise that you have to do. Do you want to learn more about fashion? I mean, what influences fashion? Does music? Does sports? That changes, of course. Skater culture, graffiti artists. I mean, like, I had this. I mean, there's so many different things.
Sure, sure. And we're going to open up for questions, students in a second, but let me sort of hit on a couple fun things. I heard that you sometimes, when you stay at people's houses, you have this very unique leave behind.
Yeah, okay.
What is that about?
So what I do is, I guess that sort of goes along with the hair and continuing to sort of evolve some iconography. I leave little pictures of myself in people's houses. So if I were to go to your house, I would bring, and it's always the same. It's a kitschy little frame, like one of those little silver frames. They're like that, with a little rhinestones in them that cost under $2 that you get you get the drugstore or something like that. So I get these kitschy little frames, and I put a picture of myself like this, like that. And and I leave them in hide them in different places in people's houses. Usually in their book, in their bookcase or where their most esteemed photographs are. And once again, like the hairdo, I left this little picture in this man, he's deceased, Marvin Davis, who owned 20th Century Fox. I got invited to his house. He's got Picassos on the floor. And I'm in a big party. I bring this little picture. I put it between a bunch of presidents, Reagan, Nancy, the whole thing. I put it right in there with his family, with his whole, and I get a call from his assistant the next day. Mr. Davis is so offended. How dare you? He's like out of his mind over me. So now this super powerful guy that owns a movie studio is so mad at me because I did this. And I thought, you know what? I like this reaction. So I thought, I did. I carried that forward, and I do that. I leave a picture. Now people really like it a lot. People get a kick out of it, and I hide it places. Usually if it's a party and people are drinking and stuff, I sneak up to their bathroom, their master bath, so when they wake up after their little groggy hangover, they look and think, oh my God, and they're horrified. Oh, Grazer was in the house looking in the, so through my medicine and stuff. So I do that. I actually left one at the Palace of the Revolution. When I met with Fidel Castro, I left one there, actually. Which blew the minds of all my friends. They go, "Do you really doing that?" And I did.
Classic. Well, I want to open it up for student questions. We don't need a microphone, but you're going to stand up, say your name, and ask questions. You're welcome to ask about the book. You're welcome to ask about film. I know there's some cinema students here, and we've got about 20 minutes. So go ahead.
Hello, Mr.
Speak
Grazer.
up loudly.
Hi, Mr. Grazer.
Nice
Nice to meet you.
meeting you.
My name is Ting Ting, and I'm from the cinema school. And my question is, what is your take and perspective on the new media platform, on the future and its impact for the future of in filmmaking, and also for your new venture, New Form Digital, its collaboration with the cinema school's web series class? Are you going to be actually watching the series created by the class?
Okay, so she asked, what do I think of new platforms, the new emerging platforms in movies and television, or just all narratives?
Just online digital.
Online digital, okay. And then I do have this little company that's called New Form Digital that does make shorts for the New Form Digital that will go out either on YouTube, different platforms. So what do I think of it? Well, I like it. I think it's a really great sort of training ground for artists to create stories and to have people like me, see those stories and expand them into something bigger, either television series or movies, or a narrative is everything, right? I mean, Walt Disney had a narrative. The Disneyland is a story, and he was brilliant at it beyond the obvious, because even if you go to the Matterhorn or any of these rides, the lines themselves are a story. So I think it's just a new world to empower anybody that has a little iPhone to create a story. So it has so much impact. It can have life in any form, a movie or television, long form series, limited series, or if you're not even interested in movies or television, it can be something else. It can be a product. So I'm all in favor of it. I think it's awesome.
And will you be watching the series?
I watch them, yeah. And there's certain sites that I like a lot. There's certain sites that I like a lot.
Questions? There we go. We're going to use the mic. Stand up so everyone can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Grazer. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is June Lee. This might be a little bit of a personal question, so if you don't want to answer. I was just wondering, is there something that keeps you up at night? And is there a problem that, specifically keeps you up at night?
Are there problems? Yeah, there are problems that keep me up at night. I think when I feel like I'm under maximizing a goal, and it's, I can just leave that there. When I'm working on something, when I feel like when I have a vision about what something could be, and I'm not working hard enough or prepared enough or dedicating enough real homework time. Homework time is just stuff meaning it's the drudgery, the stuff that you don't like to do. It's fun to talk. It's harder to read and actually create applications. So that stuff keeps me up, where I feel like I have a really powerful inspiration for something, and I'm not taking advantage of that. Because I feel really grateful. I mean, we should all feel super grateful, like that our lives are, I mean, that we are healthy. I mean, it's just so many things. We have the power to do so much. So when I feel like I'm missing a moment of that opportunity, that sort of keeps me up.
Hello, Mr. Grazer. I'm Charlie Nelson. Thanks for coming. When you have these curiosity conversations with people, particularly the ones that you had when you were just beginning your career, how did you formulate the right questions to keep people interested and make them want to talk to you?
How did I formulate the right? Well, the way I would do it was I'd have a basic interest, just a sort of basic interest in the subject. And then I did a couple things. In the beginning, when I had no assistant to like prep me, I would just have to read about the subject. But it's pretty easy now with the internet, because there's so many videos on so many subjects. So things are visual, and you have text, and it has visual dimensions, visual components. And so I just do a lot of homework, and I see what are the things that excite me. Like, I was interested in the subculture of lowriders. And then I realized lowrider, these little closed worlds, are all over the country. And they have enormous popularity in Japan. And there's, for me, like a little bit of a cool factor with that. And then I thought, well, and then you just look at that, and you're going to see so much stuff, and amazing music. And then you'll be in Bellflower, California. You can be looking at that. And that just gives, and then you think to yourself, well, what are their stakes? Like, do they have because they spend most of their money on the cars, and they detail the cars, blah, blah, blah. And what are their rules? Like, because there's always an alpha male, and there's always a power structure. There's always a system. That's what I also learned about surfing, and I'm sure some of you guys surf. It's like you know the system when you cut somebody off. Like, it's just, most things are not demystified until you actually enter the epicenter of them. But you can do that on the internet, which is awesome. And then you get prepared, and then I wouldn't know how to say that better, really. But like, for example, if I were interested, like if there was some fashion thing that I was interested in, and I wanted to meet, I don't want to say Ralph Lauren, but I've met so many different fashion designers from really young guys, but like, I would bring something to the party. I would make sure, like, that I knew some music that this person didn't know. I would definitely make sure that I knew many things that I thought had value to that art form that person didn't know. And I would find a way to bridge that in within the first minute, so that they thought, oh, that's, so that there's some enlightenment going on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Grazer. Thank you. My name is Neil Rahman. So you were mentioning in the last question that you believe that the world has rules, that there's a system to everything. And I was reading in a profile about you that you've used these rules in your curiosity conversation to sort of glean a code of conduct for yourself. And I want to ask, from your curiosity conversations, how do they inform that code of conduct? How does it evolve over time, and how has it changed?
Wow. Well, what is code of conduct? You're referencing what exactly? Because I do have a code of conduct.
Yeah. I was reading a profile of you. I believe it was in the New Yorker in 2001, and you referenced it in an interview. That's how you live your life by that code.
Well, I guess my code of conduct would be I try not to be late. I try to do the basic things right. Is that what you mean a little bit? Well, okay. So, for example, respect is the nucleus of everything. It's the so I try to be respectful. Being respectful means all the sort of hardware of in the world of respect, like being on time, dressing properly, addressing people properly. But then there's the internal side of respect, which I don't want to. There's so many ways to do that. That's being well informed. It's being interested. It's being courteous. It's but I could say this, that for example, a movie that I liked making was it's a gangster movie, American Gangster. In gangster movies, that's well known that there are codes of conduct and there are power structures. Now, Frank Lucas, who was the subject of American Gangster, was selling heroin and became like the biggest dealer of heroin. He had his own code of conduct. He failed in the end by wearing like this chinchilla coat. He did everything right, but except a woman brought him down. He wore the chinchilla coat. But basically, Frank Lucas, although on top of this power structure that he created, he wasn't really interested in drugs. He was just interested in being respected. In other words, had he found some other venue, he would have applied his resourcefulness, the same resourcefulness that got him into Southeast Asia and went to poppy fields and flew it back in American, in American military jets. He would have found some other thing. But ultimately, all he wanted was respect. So that wasn't really about drugs. It was about a man in search of respect and doing everything because he's emotionally injured to get it. And then ultimately, the real exterior, on the most visceral level, it's really about the American dream, and how that works, American business. So there's so many levels to things.
Hi.
I sort of answered your question, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Nikki. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us. It seemed like you might have sugarcoated a few things when you were working at Warner Brothers.
I'm sure.
And I just wanted to see if you could give us some advice about how to differentiate between lying and creating opportunities for yourself.
That was a really good. Wow. Good question. Sugarcoated. Oh man. Well, I would. You're redlining all the time, unfortunately. Because you are pretty close to lying. I mean, what you're doing is you're taking advantage of this opportunity. I mean, it's a really tough question. I'm taking advantage of this real estate that I'm in. At the same time, I'm doing my job, and I'm not lying to my boss, but I'm kind of using all of the Warner Brothers assets to my advantage. And they're not assets that were deployed to me. They were just available to me, and I was taking them. I don't know if I was stealing. I don't think anyone ever accused me of that, but I was kind of leveraging my situation. So it's that sort of, that's the sort of dicey area, when all I had to do was drop off a piece of paper and I invented the reason, no, I have to hand this directly to Mr. Beatty. I guess I didn't feel like he was a victim then. I wasn't hurting him. And he still could say no, but that was going to be that was my story,
And you also said that when you did call up people using your Warner Brothers connections, you would disclose this is not related to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I would always. That was within the 7 sentences. I'd say I work at Warner Brothers. It's not Warner Business, but I used the brand to get in the door. This is all stuff it's just resourcefulness.
Question.
Hi, my name is Arky. I'm a music industry major here. I had a question about, I'm really big on time. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm really big on time, and I'm really curious to know what your routine is like in terms of finding ideas. Are you more of a morning person? And also, about your ideas, when you find them, are they more on the fly, or do you premeditate find, your ideas in different ways? And if so, really just what works better?
Okay.
What has a better track record, or both? It's up to you.
Okay. Because you brought up meditation, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that does play into this. Basically, I do feel obligated to create something every day. Something. It doesn't have to be a new idea, but just I can add to an idea. But I feel obligated. So I am the most creative in the morning. Definitely in the morning, from about 7 till 11:30 in the morning. And that's, by the way, when I have these curiosity conversations. I never have them around food, because food just completely changes my biochemistry, all of our biochemistry, and it's distracting. So all of those meetings are always one-on-one. I'm happy to go to someone else's office, their environment, wherever they're comfortable. A lot of people do like to come to me, but you go to where is the most comfortable environment. And I don't think food is, I'm not sure about the food part of it. It doesn't work for me. I did do a study on that. I met this geneticist that actually was in the Wall Street Journal when I was making the Nutty Professor, who isolated the fat gene, and it was at the Rockefeller Foundation, and I said, explain to me biorhythms. And it's not a science, biorhythms, because I was curious about creativity as well, the same way. When is it the most heightened? Does it intersect with the phrase biorhythms? But they don't give much credibility to that. So it's just like when I feel it, and I feel it sort of at that time in the morning. That's when I'm the most creative. I am the best in a very congested environment. I had a house at the beach in Malibu. I'm not comfortable with serenity like that. I'm not creating anything in serenity. So I like New York City. I like coffee shops. I love New York City to be creative. I like coffee shops. I would like Echo Park. I'd like whatever is creative. Whatever is congested with young energy. That's my preferential choice. And I like it for the obvious reasons, and I also, what happens is when there's a lot of people around, you use your brain to focus, to push out all of that energy, and in pushing out all that energy, it forces even more, a multiple amount of energy on assaulting the original problem of creating something. So in a weird way, it has an inverse reaction. So I really like that now, to try to now once the idea is matured into something, I do use meditation. And in fact, in order to get Splash made, which took like 8 years of solid rejection, basically, I used to lie on the floor and I'd meditate for like 5 hours. I'd meditate. I gave away, it was sort of well known, I was a very young producer, and I gave away all of my projects that were controlled by all the other studios. I gave them all away back to the studios, so I was not beholden to them. So I didn't have to say to Columbia Pictures, I'm working on developing more of this thing. I just wanted to dedicate everything to the fantasy of this movie, of what it is, what it could be, what it could mean to be, what it would look like. And even though it didn't exist in the way it came out, it was pretty clear in my mind. But I did like the idea of meditation.
And you have a pretty disciplined routine, right? It's not every day you do things at the same time?
I have a pretty structured routine, yeah.
All right, a couple more.
Hi, I'm Daniel Bruce. Thank you again for coming in. You talk about curiosity and asking questions and learning new things. Obviously that entails meeting people, trying things, etc. But you're also an incredibly busy person. You need to get things done in your life. How do you, rank or order the curiosity versus what you have to do, and when does one trump the other?
Well, there's some things that I do really have to. I mean, I place curiosity in those meetings in a very high place. So, that is a job. I mean, I feel like if I don't meet somebody, if I don't fulfill that job, I do feel like I might not sleep that night, or it might be one of those things. I feel like I'm failing at my duties, the duties that I've created for myself, for my own self-value. So it's a very high value to me. So it's something, that I feel like doing. But I do have a lot of left brain activities that I have to do, you know. I have kids I have to do, I've got a girlfriend, there's things I have to, there's right brain with that, but there's a lot of left brain of follow-up and stuff. I have a little bit of a company. There are certain duties that I have to do. There's certain calls I have to call back, and I dread it. You know, I did 2 of them today. Actually, so there are those things that I have, those left brain activities that I have to do, those sort of hardware oriented, the mechanical things, and they do have to get done somehow. So I have to get through that homework assignment to do this other thing.
I'm sure Michael will be pleased to hear you have a small company, little company somewhere. Okay, last question. Make it a good one. No pressure.
Hi, my name is Lorena. Thank you so much for coming. And my question is, the stories that spark your interest, do they have any particular elements, or do they meet any specific criteria that to you is very specific, or that usually are the stories that you like?
I like when someone says, did you know this happened? Do you know this exists? I would always tell every assistant, every person, pretend you are the junior guy working for an anchor on 60 Minutes, and you have like a minute to get their interest. And so I always love those, did you know this really happened? Or do you know, I like nonfiction. And there's so much great, there's so much great stuff. So I like that right away. Someone piquing my interest with a did you know kind of question, and then having the informational backup for it. Just enough, so.
It brings up an interesting, I wanted to ask you this. We had Peter Thiel was at USC, who wrote a book called 0 to 1, great book, but also, early investor in Facebook, one of the most successful investors. You probably know him. He asked a question, I think through your conversations you would have a good response, and if you don't, you don't. Tell me something you know is true that a lot of people wouldn't agree with you about. Through your curiosity.
That's a really good thing. I don't know that right off the top of my head.
You don't?
Let's see.
Something you know is true that very few people would agree with you.
Oh God, maybe
that's a tough one.
There was something that actually happened just recently that was that. Do we know? No.
It's all right. What about the importance of curiosity? Mindfulness is very sort of in vogue now. There's a movement. There are courses on it. There are books on it. Is that part of curiosity in the conversation, being present and focusing on that? Because you also said you meditated for 5 hours a day.
For Splash.
Yeah. Anything for Daryl Hannah.
I'm trying to do 20 minutes now. Mindfulness, yeah, I think whatever, mindfulness is, I had somebody that was like an outdoorsman that tried to teach me mindfulness 7 years ago or something. But it's a phrase people say, be mindful. Let's all be mindful. That's a real thing. Whatever works.
Exactly. And if you found anything through these conversations,
whatever gives you confidence and power. Confidence creates power. Information creates confidence. There's basic, equations that sort of lead to things that animate you, give you life, make you feel like you're alive. And then you act that way. Then you are curious. Then you want to solve problems. You couldn't ask for a more perfect point on which to end. We want to do something because you mentioned this early on. I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to sort of be amateur photographer. But you mentioned, I said, what's your biggest fear? And you're like, that these young people will leave here and think, oh, I didn't learn anything, or I was boring. And I know that's not the case. In fact, it's the opposite. And so let's do this, because it's very rare to get Brian to come visit. But let's do this. Think about 5 years from now. You've heard a great, story, lessons, advice. Shift forward 5 years and think, what's going to stick with you from tonight? Short, powerful stuff, not long stories, because we're going to go quickly. But I want to see a lot of hands up, and I want to see from you what really resonates for you. Ready? Go.
Ask the right questions.
Go.
Develop curiosity. It involves you in the world. Curiosity can't be judged.
Curiosity is a strength and a tool.
Leave pictures in people's houses.
Yes,
Create something every day.
up top there.
It's about what's in the middle of the question.
It's about what's in the middle of the question?
Confidence creates
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Confidence creates power.
In order to create, you have to get out of the rhythm of a single vocabulary. Information creates confidence.
Little things lead to little things.
It's hard to evolve if you're living in a cycle. Pick the brains of the most brilliant people in all fields.
Starting.
Curiosity can be a savior.
Always make new connections.
Don't be afraid to leverage your situation and take initiative.
Be defining.
Please help me thank Brian Grazer. Brian.